give glory to God, to our pastor, to our superintendent and director. We are thankful to be here this morning.
Amen.
Thankful to be here. We come through the storm and the rain, but we made it, didn't we? We're still pressing forward, knowing that God has a watchful eye over us. Pray this morning, Master, that you let us down in the deep secret of your word, that we might apply it to our lives and walk worthy according to your calling, which is in Christ Jesus. We know that Sister Lightfoot is on her journey, missionary journey, and she's leaving tomorrow or next day or Tuesday. So we thank God for that, and hope that she have a successful journey. You know, she goes all over with her missionary work, so we keep her lifted up in prayer and keep the others that's lifted up in prayer. We still have some that are sick among us, and we have some that is fearful among us. And sometimes the fearful is worse off than those that are sick, huh? Mm-hmm. So we have to continually to pray to encourage them. No, last week that's when we was talking about encouragement. If you have the gift, if God has blessed you with the gift of encouragement, we need it today. We need you to come forward today with that gift of encouragement. There's so many people that needs to be encouraged. And God has given us all something to work with. So let us keep that in mind, that some people just need to say, just to hear an encouragement word. And we know that these are some unpredictable times, but we know that God is still what? He's still on the throne, and he's still in charge. We had a wonderful lesson this all this quarter, haven't we? Mm-hmm. Been talking about encouragement, talking about people of valor, those that are standing up for God in the midst of everything. And that's what needs to happen. If you take a stand for God, you need to stand for it. We used to get them old folks for God I stand, and for God I die. Mm-hmm. And these are the times that we need to take that stand, no matter what seems to be going on around us. And just that know that God is not asleep. God is not got his eyes closed. He sees everything that is happening. And so he wants us to take that stand. And our lesson this morning talk about Esther goes before the king. And you begin reading that lesson, it doesn't make much sense till you do it. You have to go back to chapter 1 and bring it on up to see what we're talking about, that why she took a stand and who Esther was and what's happening in that. And our aim for today's lesson says to understand that God's people, as God's people, we are sometimes put in a desperate situation beyond our control. And I know none of you ain't been there, have you? None of you been there. Everything you had, and you've been controlling everything. You know about everything, don't you? I've been put where I'm in situations, desperate situations, I didn't even know what to do. And the principle is to rejoice that distressing situations do not mean hopeless to those who trust God. And our application today, an application means to apply it. To remember that when we feel desperate or helpless, we will never go wrong by turning to the Lord. When you feel in that helpless situation, you done everything else and then tried everything else, you can't go wrong by turning to the Lord. Okay, let's take a look. In this lesson, we're going to deal with some pride, power, and selfishness. And we know pride and power don't go good together. Pride always what? Is a fuel for sin, doesn't it? Pride will fuel sin and get going and get you off in a tangent off all about yourself. So we take a look at Esther. Esther, I got notes all over everywhere because I went back to chapter 1 and come back to chapter 2 and up to chapter 3. Esther goes before the king, and we need to know what was the need for her to go before the king, first of all. And who is Esther? We start reading. Esther is a young maiden whose mother and father had died. Earlier, after they came out of battle and came out of exile, her parents died. Her mother and father died. And she had a cousin named Mordecai, which her father was Mordecai's uncle. And Mordecai took Esther and raised her as his daughter. And Esther became queen after Vesti. Vesti was the queen of Xerxes, and I'm just gonna say the king at that time. And she was the king, and she was the queen then. But she had to be replaced because she disobeyed the king. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. And after they had been, find out they had been carried away Mordecai and the rest of the Jews had been carried away into Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar. And today they're placed in Shushan. And this is where we are today in Shushan. And so as we look at the lesson and look at what takes place in chapter 2, Mordecai and the Jews begin to mourn and fast at the king's order. This goes back to Mordecai. There's a power struggle here. Mordecai and Haman. Haman was the king's right-hand man, let's say. And he had did what he could to elevate himself, and the king had placed him in charge. And the first thing that he placed in charge, he wanted somebody to come and respect him and bow down to him. You know, sometimes you get a position, and the first thing you know, I'm gonna be over these people. They're gonna have to respect me. Have you heard people say that? You're gonna have to respect me. And that's what he demanded, respect. It wasn't about the people that he was in a position. Sometimes God puts us in a position to help others. It's not always about me that I'm in a position, but it's in a position to help others. But he was focused on nothing but himself. And so he didn't get along with Mordecai it's a long story, I can't go back and tell the whole thing. But the Jews, he wanted people, he called this little meeting and little banquet and everything, and wanted everybody to bow down. Haman wanted everybody to bow down to him. Well, Mordecai just looked at him. All that made him furious that Mordecai didn't bow down to him. And so it goes on to a long story. After he got the power and he went back and told the king that Mordecai, is not respecting me, and he's not, and they said that he didn't respect you either. But y'all, okay, it's all right if I'm gonna kill him, remove him. And then somebody said, well, what if you remove him? What about all these other Jews? And so he decided that he needs to get rid of everybody. How would you feel waking up getting a letter that telling you that you're gonna die on a certain day? So he set the time and date. I'm just gonna say September 2024 was the date and time. Well, he told them to gather up all of the Jews. Now the king, what's his name? Xerxes?
Oh my goodness.
Hasarus. No, Hasarus. He's got. You can use Xerxes or Hasarus. He's the same person. But anyway, he was the ruler of 121 provinces. He was over 121 provinces. And just picture this as being the county, like we got Maricopa County, Pinal County, and so forth. So just picture that in your mind that he was over that many counties. And so because of the Jews, because Mordecai didn't bow down to him, all the other people was placed in danger. Their lives was placed in danger. And Mordecai got the news when he had went to the king and got a letter, got the seal and sent it out to all of the provinces and telling them to get the Jews ready, because in 2024, I'm just setting the date. We're gonna kill them. We're gonna get rid of all of the Jews. We're going just get rid of them, kill them all. And so when Mordecai heard that, he put himself in sackcloth and went to mourning. And that day and time, he couldn't go into the king, but he wouldn't lay himself. He kept himself near the gate. And he was pleading for his people in a way. And so Esther at that time, when Vashti had disobeyed the king, he took her crowd and they began to look for another queen. And Esther was among that group of young women that came in and caught the king's eye. And you know how, we just think about the pageants, how they, in Miss America and Miss USA and all of those people. So she was brought in, and she was one of the ones that was selected, and it said it took a year, 12 months of preparation before she could go in. The beauty preparations, the oils, you know how they prep the pageant, they have to prepare themselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. And so all this preparation, but she was in line to be queen. And Mordecai said, well, since you in that position, maybe you can help our people. And you know, that was a good, God places people in your life. This eunuch was a good person, good man, wasn't he? He was, all of the eunuchs, all of the men that overseen the women, the maidens in the king's chambers and king's area, they were eunuchs. They wouldn't just place any men, all those were eunuchs that was placed there. And so he found favor with Esther too. He liked Esther. Hatch was his name. And so he would deliver the messages between Mordecai and Esther. And Mordecai mourned and got himself all in sackcloth and ashes. And Esther sent a message to him to come out of the sackcloth and ashes. Have you ever thrown yourself a pretty pity party and nothing was happening? Just gonna get yourself an early start. I'm gonna throw myself a pity party because I heard. You hear what I'm saying? You said, I heard. We don't give God room to work, do we, sometimes? I heard that something's going to happen, so I'm gonna have myself a pity party today. And so Esther said, come on, let me say, ain't nothing, you mourn when something happened, when folks die. You don't mourn before the death, do you? But you after the death. So he had already done started mourning, and then because he heard that all the Jews was going to be destroyed. And not only him, but all the Jews were going to be destroyed because of one chief servant. He had pride, he demanded obedience, he had power, and he had position. And sometimes positions is not good for people. Certain people cannot handle positions. It goes right straight to their head. Certain people just cannot do it. And so he did that hard. Yeah, you got to, and he did not. You got to remember that you got to remember that Haman and in King Ahasuerus is cut from the same cloth. They both came from pagan backgrounds, serving a long line of pagan backgrounds. Mordecai came out of the tribe of Benjamin, a long line of those who bowed down to the only true and one God. And here he wanted Mordecai to change. And you know, back in the book of is it Romans, where they said we will not bow before nobody but the Lord and the true God? Well, they held on to that. So when you take a stand for God, you got to take that stand no matter how dark and how dim it is. Stop looking at how big your problem is and look at how big your God is. And so we get caught up sometimes looking at our situations and positions and stuff and where we are and forget about what God can do. And in the book of Esther, you don't hear prayer mentioned and you don't hear God mentioned in that book. But you see God at work, don't you? You see the providence of God. You see God saying, you don't have to get up all the time and walk out, amen, praise the Lord, I'm a Christian, y'all, and wear them chains and stuff like every time somebody sees you, hallelujah. And you know, you don't have to go, you know, if you who you are, it's going to come what? It's going to come forward. It's going to come forward. You don't have to do all of that to try to convince somebody that you are a child of God and that you're a Christian. If you're a Christian, you're a Christian. If you're a child of God, you're just a child of God.
And so be trying to convince themselves.
They're not sure. When you're not sure who you are, you got to keep reminding yourself, don't you? And so this is what was happening at that time back in chapter 3. And so when you got people that you put too much power in their hand, and they don't, and their heart is not right, they don't know how to handle it. It's all about me, myself, and I. And that's what, and when you get in a position, God places you there so that you can help somebody else. Be benefit. When God bless you, he blesses you so you can bless somebody else. And so we see this thing notice since he went before the king. And you know, Esther was young. Esther was young. And all of this, we look at all this racial hatred and hostility. Well, look at where we are today. What's happening with us today? This is us. Look at that evil king that we still dealing with. He ain't even on the throne no more. But we still get whiplashes from him. So we look at God gives us these lessons to show us where we are and for us to tighten up and get closer to him and know that he has not lost any power. Just stay with God. We see all of the stuff that all of the evil work and how this whole evil king that we're dealing with is still dealing with, how he's continually to provoke, doesn't he? He continually to provoke. He can stand back and tell, I ain't done nothing, I ain't said nothing, but you still got somebody that you whispered in their ear, provoking and inciting all this evil and all of this. So this stuff, these things is going to be with us. And it's not over yet, and it's not going to leave us, but we need to be able to be strong, be steadfast. We done took that stand for God until God will not. And don't let pride get in you. It's okay for power. It's okay about positions. You can have power and positions. But when you let pride get in you, pride fuels evil, doesn't it? Pride fuels sin. It's the fuel to edit sin and evil and hatred and all of that. So don't get so prideful that because you got a position and because somebody made you a superintendent and because somebody made you over the along with the pastor, don't let that go to your head. He put us in these positions for a time. Said, what did Mordecai for a time? Said, after you're in that position for a time, it's a need for where you are. God has left us here. Look at all the hundreds and thousands of people that went on and died. God left us here for a reason and for a purpose. It's not because I was so good and because you were so good and because you know how to run from coronavirus and you hid and stayed hid. It's not about that. It's about who God is in your life and how good God is to you. And so when all of this is happening and all of these things that Mordecai done set up, and he didn't set up to kill the people and to destroy a whole nation of people. And they were people that were hurting. People had already come out of exile. People that had lost everything, that lost their loved ones, that lost their mother and their father. And you come here and send me a letter telling me you're going to kill me. That is my time to die and I'm struggling and trying to live. But that's evil people that is doing that. You might not be killing nobody physically, but how much time do you kill them with your tongue? You can, and we talked about that lesson last week. People talk about sticks and stones don't hurt. Oh yes, words do hurt. Words tear you down. And Satan knows where to get to you and knows how to make you feel less than. And some people want to make you feel less than. So you have to keep your mind stayed on the Lord, because those evil people are still there. It's still there. Even in the midst of the horrible situation, don't you see God working in this lesson? Don't you see where we are today? Don't you see God working now? In the midst of all of this stuff that's going on, we got fires on this hand, we got storms and floods over here, we got evil men and women rise up here, all around us. It is. All around us is something rising up against us. But yet in the midst of all of that, we see God working. What did I tell y'all last week? Get up and stop looking. Looking is gazing up at what's going on. But get up and see. There's a difference between looking and seeing. Get up and see what God is doing. See the beauty of God. See his work in the midst of all of that. So get up and stop looking in the morning and gazing. If you set your eyes and gaze up, but get up and see. See the beauty of God. See how he's working today in the midst of everything. He's still working, you all. And this evilness is still coming up on him. And no matter what you do, once you and just I think about maybe Esther maybe understood that God was in control. You never heard her moan or groan or complain, but she knew that God was in control, and know that she was placed here for a time such as this. So after all of this evil that Haman had done, and Mordecai had things that had happened, he said the fourth verse is, so Hadad went forth to Mordecai unto the streets of the city, which was before the gates. And Mordecai told him of all that was happening. And Haman had got a lot of money to pay to kill these people. He was paid to destroy all the Jews. And he gave a copy of the letter, sent letters to all the prophets, telling folks that they were going to die and what they set a date for. And this Hadad, he was one of the managers of the household of the king. And they call them chamberlains back then too. And he would keep the message going between Mordecai. And Esther spake unto Hadad and gave him the command, but to Mordecai and all the king's servants and all the people that was with them and all that would be destroyed because of one evil man looking and seeking power. Can you see that happening to us today? Power. And you can step back and grin in your face and know that you're hurting me. And all the people that he refused to send vaccinations to and come, I'm president. You have to do what I say do. Didn't care about the people being hurt. God let us see this for our own. So you can read about it, but he brought this right before us, didn't he? Right before our faces, and let us see what was really going on. And then Mordecai commanded Esther to think that of herself. Don't think that yourself, because you in the king's palace, that your life will be taken too. So don't get comfortable and think that you can escape death because you in the kingdom. You know what Esther's real name is not, her Jewish name is was, I can't think of the next name, but she did not let the king know that she was a Jew. She didn't let him know that when she went into the camp. Mordecai told her, you keep it to yourself. Don't let them know that you're a Jew, because your life is going to be in danger.
And she was also breaking the law.
So she was breaking the law. But before she got to the king had to send for you. And she
had
had
to accept
they had to accept it because she was still in the training phase and she had not been accepted. But she was listening to all that Mordecai listened to her people and listened to what was happening to him. And Mordecai said, "For if though together hold us, if thou together hold us our peace at a time such as this, then their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place." The Jews is going to be somebody going to take advantage and kill the Jews, but you got an opportunity to speak out and to get to the king and to persuade him not to kill the Jews, not to kill our people. And Esther begged them to return to Mordecai the answer. And so her answer was to gather all the Jews in the presence of Shushan and fast for me. She said, not fast for yourself, but fast for me, and neither eat nor drink day or night. I also, my maidens will fast likewise, and I will go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. Her mind was made up. But you know, Esther felt the hand of God guiding her. You know when the Spirit of God is guiding you into something. If you with God and if you and God is all right with God, you're all right with God, you can feel the Spirit of God guiding you into something. Yes. So here, this is all about the providence of God this morning. It's not about praying, your knees praying. It's not about jumping up saying amen. As a time that if you live your life, it's a time for you to let God work. It's a time for you to hold your peace and allow God to move and to work. And she knew that God was leading her and guiding her through this thing. And she said, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about it. If my time comes, my time comes. But I'm going to do what I vowed to do. And I don't want to see my people. Now, this is a young woman. It's not an old woman. She's a young woman. And she's been through a lot and she's seen a lot. But no matter who you are, what you are, God has a job for each of us. He has a task for each of us. He's given each of us something to work with. You might say, well, God ain't giving me nothing to work with. I ain't got no gift. He ain't gifted me with nothing. I ain't got anything I can do. You need to stop and check yourself out. God has given each of us something to work with. And what did he tell us? They had already said that we will not serve another God. Back over in the Old Testament, they said further over in the Old Testament, they will not serve another God. We will not bow down to another God. We've taken our stand. So you can't be a Christian and jump from the straddle the fence with the water, get high, you will jump over the other side of the fence. When the fire gets too hot, you will jump out. If you've taken a stand for God, no matter what you're going through, you said, Lord, I'm putting it in your hands. I'm trusting in you. And that's what we have to learn how to completely, when he says to rest in me, that's what he means to do. When you're resting in the Lord, that means you done gave everything over. You don't have your hands off of it. And sometimes we turn things over to the Lord, but we got a little thing on it, stand back with a little thing. He wants you to get your hand. If you want me to work for you, you get your hand completely off of it. Sometimes we will trust you with, I ain't gonna trust you with this. I got the little bad, ugly kids over here. I trust you with everything, but I ain't gonna trust God. I tell them I'm putting in your hands. Because I done tried to do something with these couple of grandkids I got, y'all, and I turned them over. And I tell them, when I turn you over, I don't even know you no more. I turn you completely over to God. And you know what I ask God to do for me? Just give me the strength to go through whatever you have to do to bring them to their senses. And he'll do it. And I've seen him do it in my life and in my family. I've seen him do it. But you got to stand back and be out of the way and allow God to work and allow him to do whatever he needs to do. And as we come getting close to but Haman had already prepared a gallows to hang Mordecai, because he couldn't stand Mordecai. And you know what? The king in the sixth chapter, when Esther went in before the king and she went to pleading and he asked her, what can I do for you? What do I need? And she said, I want you to save me to spare my people. And she went to talk, and when she said that, and she got favor with the king and got in his presence, it said, the beginning of that sixth chapter, it said the king could not sleep. One night he couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, something was bothering him. And he asked him to bring in the writings and bring in the report. Bring in the secretary's note. Maybe y'all understand that. I just need to read over the notes and see what it is. Bring in the notes from the business meeting that we had so I can read. I don't possibly have to read all the notes from the business meetings and stuff. Bring them notes, and something bothered me. And in those notes, he had found, early part of the lesson, 2 men was going to kill the king. And Mordecai sent a word to the king, but it didn't get, seemed like Haman had sent that message, he took credit for that. And so when the king got to reading along, he said, Mordecai, he's the man that sent, look at here, this man saved my life. He's the one that told me them 2 men was planning to kill me. Was he ever notified for that? Was he ever given any recognition for his good deed? Somebody said, no, he wasn't given no recognition. But Esther had already asked for the people to be spared, asked for Mordecai to be spared. And he said, how much time do I have? Is that not right? And he had said that the king had said, whatever you want, queen, ask for it and it shall be given you. And so she threw a banquet and she invited Haman and the king. And he was so proud of Haman. Look at, ain't nobody going to the queen's banquet but me and the king. He was so proud to get to go. And so she had that banquet, and I guess it wasn't right. It wasn't her time. It was on God's time. And so she didn't ask for what she wanted at this banquet. She called a second banquet. And he really did get all puffed up and pride. Oh, I'm going to the second banquet with the queen. And so after the king had read all those notes about Mordecai, she mentioned then that Mordecai, that she wanted Mordecai to be spared. And she said, well, this is the man that saved my life. And so he called Haman in. And he says, a man that has really done and spared my life, what would you do for that man? That person has really spared my life. What would you do for him to honor him? How could we honor that man? He said, oh, bring him the royal robes, bring him the finest horses, bring him the finest everything, and set him on it, and just make a parade for him, and just parade him down there. And he said in his heart, who could be honored? Can't nobody be honored but me. This is Haman. I'm the one the king is going, so I'm going to tell him everything. Like all this stuff he was thinking for himself. I'm going to get the royal robe, I'm going to get to have a parade and all that. Because he said, who can the king honor? Nobody, ain't nobody worthy to be honored. Nobody but me. You don't know who God got working for you in the back, do you? You don't know where God is working at. And so he told all this and he made that plan. And so he said, well, bring old Mordecai in here. And put the robe upon him. And put him on the finest chariots and horses. And give him the parade. And Haman went back home with his head hung low. Told his family what had happened. And Mordecai, and he couldn't stand Mordecai no way, because Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him. If you're getting ready to do away with God's folk, you better think twice when you start picking on God's children. It's true. When you pick on God's soldiers and pick on God's children, you better be careful. And you think because nothing has happened now. He thought because nothing happened now, those same gallows that he had made for Mordecai, he was hung on those gallows. So when you're digging holes for people and trying to trip people up and trying to do evil, you got to remember you might be the one that falls into that hole. You got to keep your mind on God. You got to be good. You got to be true about your word. And when all of the plotting and all of this had come out, good to see Sister Hood come in. All of this had come out. We think about how God. Don't you see God working? Can't you see him working? You don't see nobody falling down on their knees, crying and calling and praying and all. If you stay prayed up, you're already ready for what God has in store for you. You don't have to get ready, but you're already. And so that day of mourning that the Jews was mourning the whole country down, mourning and crying, because a day had been set for them to be annihilated, to be killed. And one day, they're going to do it all in one day. Every county had to gather their people, their Jews. And that was going to be a day of killing. Now the Jews' day of mourning has now turned into a day of joy and celebration. See how God can switch that thing? You can plan for something, but God can unplan anytime. And they had planned for that. And Esther was Esther's time to go before the king. But it wasn't Esther's time to go before the king. But it was God's time for her to go before the king. It was mentioned, but it was God's time. Don't worry about what the enemy is going to do to you and what can do to you. Stop worrying about the strength and the power of the enemy. Don't know that God has, he said, I got all the power. And all of these lessons that we've had come up here show God, how God came in and intervened, didn't he? Came in and took over. But God is, whatever you're going through, we must trust God about the unknown. Stop worrying about the unknown. We worry about the unknown, but let God handle that. Haman was proud and bragging on what he could do, and he talked about his riches. Did y'all read that? And talked about how rich he was, talked about his 10 sons, just talked about everything he had. He ain't talked about not one thing what he was going to do for the people. Not one thing. He talked about all of his riches and how he was so satisfied with himself. Can you see you getting hung up on yourself and get stuck up on yourself? And there's somebody else sitting right beside you that need a dress or need a drink of water and need something, you so hung up on what about yourself. He was went to bragging and boasting about the people how rich he was, and said, look what the king has done for me. He's made me ruler, he's made me his first-hand man, and I won't name it, I won't Mordecai to bow down. Mordecai gonna bow down to him. And he would walk by the king, and Mordecai would be standing there, and that they said he got furious. He walked up and go into his position where everybody is falling and bowing down before Mordecai stood there and looked at him. He said he was furious. And when he got ready to go into the banquet, Mordecai was standing outside the door. And he said he was furious because Mordecai didn't bow down to him as he was going into the queen. And he said, but he got over it because he knew that he was going to have the upper hand. He knew that he was going to have it all. So you cannot plan and to do something and think that God is not looking at your dirty work. You know, if you got a dirty heart, you got dirty hands. If you got dirty hands, you got a dirty heart. So you got to do something with your dirty hands. And remember that God has our back, y'all. Whatever we're going through, the load gets heavy for me, and I know it gets heavy for you. But I got to think about what God said. I know I got a burden. I know that. And I know I'll forever have a burden. But I know one time, and I remember it, and I'm as clear as day, and I still remember to this day, when my burden got so heavy, how Jesus, he reached out and took the heaviness out of me. I got the burden, but Jesus got the heaviness. You see what I'm saying? He'll do for you that. He'll do that for us. When you think my load is too heavy, he'll take it and shift it over on his shoulder. And you think it, and you still walking crooked because you ain't trusted him. You still walking crooked thinking you got the load. Straight up and look, Jesus got the load for you. Know that he's got the load. And know that we got to go through something. He says, if you're going to be with me, we got to go through the storms and the rain. Look what he had to go through for us. And so we got to be able to go through it. And every one of us have a race to run. And the race is set and we cannot do anything about it. The only thing that I can do is to figure myself out how I'm going to stay in the race. That's my job. It's not trying to get rid of the race or shorten the race. It's the how to stay in the race. How to stay in the storm. When he's going to storm, my storm, do I want to walk through my storm? He said he'll walk with me if I want to walk through my storm. But some folks don't want to go through the storm. They stay pulling and struggling and kicking and hopping and squalling. And he said, but the storm is yours. So if you want Jesus to drag you through the storm, he'll drag you through. And if you want him to carry you through your storm, he'll carry you through. And if he drags you through the storm, you will come out looking like a rag doll. But if he carries you through the storm, you will come out looking like $1 million. Amen. So you make your mind up how you want to go through this thing, y'all. We got to go through it. You got to know how you want to go through it. Mm-hmm. You want to go through it with Jesus carrying us and guiding us and telling us and leading us through it, or you want him to drag you through this thing? I don't want Jesus to drag. I want him to carry me, and I want to be able to go peacefully with my head up high and trusting and trusting in him. We got to know that whatever it is, the enemy doesn't have no power to do nothing to us. We must trust God for the unknown. And there's a lot of unknowns out there, y'all.